Hey everyone, as you can see on my screen, we really got a very good and interesting case study to understand, especially those who are actually trying to build an agentic AI by themselves. If you have watched my previous video where I mentioned that when I tried to include a new MCP server, which was providing a memory to my agentic AI, then I observed that sometime agentic AI was just getting confused what needs to happen for the simple task as well. I have shown you that, right? And that is what seems to be happening because based on my experience and observation so far with large language model, it's very hard to control how large language model is going to respond in a real time. Though we have some strategies which I'm going to explain what are the best strategy which we can utilize to control not only the large language model response, but how we can ensure that such kind of, uh, catastrophic event should not happen with our agentic AI. So let's quickly try to understand what was the case, right? There is a company called SaaStr who recently just said that they are actually using Replit AI assistant to build the application which has a and support of end-to-end, not only building the application but deploy the application to the various environment. And it seems like somehow SaaStr folks has given access to the production environment, which is very unusual to happen. I have been in this industry for 20 years now. I haven't seen a single instance where we are giving a production database access to anyone who can make any changes in that. Only exception which we have in the case of a production outage, when support and a maintenance team still has to follow the process to make any small change in the production environment, and there are a lot of approval has to happen. And if there is a very simple business as usual production change, so there is a long cycle of getting approval, then implementing that, and we have to ensure that nothing is getting broken when we make those changes. So I'm still wondering, whosoever is using this particular agent AI to give the production access the way it is having, where it can delete the entire database, which was completely shocking for me, right? Which actually gives, a very alarming situation to us, especially for the white coders who are completely dependent upon these AI assistant tool to build their application along with deploying with the agentic AI. I know this is everybody's saying it's a future, but we have to be very cognizant about these kind of issues which are recently being uncovered in that. And we have some ways definitely in future, once we evolve with this agentic AI world, we will be having more safeguards, to handle such situation more accurately, right? Okay. Having said that, if you just see these news, in a different newspaper, AI goes rogue and Replit coding tool deleted entire complete database. Then we have a lot of news around this, and then we have the owner of this, who is a really nice guy, Amzad Basad, who just came up with on a Twitter and responded back that he is offering a help, and not only the help, but he's going to compensate on that as well, because this is not something which has to happen in real world, because this is really a catastrophic when it comes to deleting a production data, and we all can understand who have been in this industry for quite a long time, right? So the now question comes up, what we can do to avoid such thing, because if you just understand this entire article, so it's not only deleted the database once, but once it was asked why they have deleted it, it's tried to just put some fake data as well, right? Which is again, seems like things are completely getting uncontrollable for the agentic AI. The other thing is what it has done is it's not only put the fake data, but the very important thing, it was specifically mentioned that this is a code freeze window. You should not take any action. That's the another thing which agentic AI does. And all these situations and issues actually provides a sense that we have to very carefully design our agentic AI behavior, and we have to put as much as control we can. I know the fact that large language model response can be sometime very uncontrollable, even if we have all those kind of control in place, right? So the learning is we have to see where we have to define our boundary, like what all responsibilities we have to provide to our agentic AI. Now, this is what our learning is. And now what could be the suggestion for this particular problem, how we can control? I know these big companies who are building all these agentic AI, they know all these things, but the person who are really interested how they can do, who are starting writing their agentic AI and they are making, their journey started in this area, then these are the four pillars which you have to understand really well when you are going to build the agentic AI. The first one is the prompt engineering. Second one is the fine tuning and model control. Third one is the RAG, which is the retrieval-augmented generation. Third one is the secure architecture. And this is where your development experience comes into the picture, right? So I'm going to talk about in detail for all these four things with the examples so that you can understand how these prompt engineering, fine-tuning, RAG, and the secure architecture can help not only to control the action agentic AI is taking, but how we can make it more effective and don't go into those confusing state where it can behave in a very awkward way, which can cause a lot of trouble for all of us. All right, so let's start with the prompt engineering, right? What is prompt engineering? Prompt engineering is where we have to give a very structured input to our large language model so that it can understand what needs to happen precisely, right? Because it has this thinking, right? If you have been following along my videos, if I just show you my simple agent where I have written the prompt, this is what my prompt is. If you just see, there is a very structured way how the output should look like, what all things, I'm setting as a context, like what I want, and I have explained. I have to write this prompt multiple times to get to the right state where, large language model was not getting confused. So this is the context which we are saying, and then you are saying the task history, meaning if you have a memory server, so if you have executed a similar task, then you don't have to go for any other tool. You can utilize the memory and you can just take the action accordingly. And then we have these external servers where we have a different tools. So it is a very structured way to design your prompt engineering, right? But what would happen if you have a more number of MCP servers or more number of tools to interact with? And that is where this agent AI, assistant AI, because they have to interact with a lot of external system, right? So this is what the technique which you have to keep in a mind, which is a very theoretical aspect. But if you just following my video, you will understand how to write these kind of prompts so that your LLM can define proper activities for any given task, right? Explicit instruction, clearly straightforward and action and roles, like you are a read-only analyst. This is very important, right? You have to mention that, but it's still not guaranteed that it is going to act in that way. So if it is your large language model is going mad, then it can do anything, right? So you always have to keep in mind, this is just one of the possibility through which we can safeguard. Another thing is set the context very, very precisely. For example, if you, due to any reason whatsoever, which I can't even imagine, if you give access to any sensitive information, it's not about production data. In non-production environment also, we have a data which is definitely very much needed as we need the production data, because it has a propagation from our application from a non-staging environment, from non-production environment to the production environment, and those data, especially in a UAT environment, is very, very important and very costly to reserve, right? So you have to give a context where you are specifically said that, okay, you are interacting with the sensitive information, don't try to change, modify, delete anything in that, right? Another one is few shot learning, meaning you can provide some kind of real-time example with the input and output, where you can say, if this is the situation and you have to take this action, if it is safe, then take it, otherwise reject it, right? So you have to give this example. Constraint, you have to write this constraint, like you should only allow to do a read-only query in the sensitive data. If you have watching my video in the database server, this is the very first validation which we have. Not the first one, the second one, right? What we are saying here is whatever the query is being created by the large language model, it should always be start with the select keyword. What it doesn't mean, we are not aligned to any update, insert and delete, not even create or not even drop or alter the table, right? Stop sequencing, you have to define some words so that, large language model can understand where it has to stop. You will find, if you have been using large language model, there are a lot of situations where it goes completely uncontrollable, right? So now the way contract is, just to put this entire thing in a context, if you ask, hey, do you do some white coding for me, but remember there is a code freeze on prod, right? Which is pretty much it's saying on a very high level the same situation what SaaStr person has faced, right? But the right way of doing it, this is how you should do it. Role, you are a read-only database analyst. First step, you are specifically mentioning, Okay, you are just a read-only database, just in spite of the fact that the user you are using to make the connection is also having that access, right? Task, what exactly you want to do, the rule, what kind of rule you are forbidden from executing command, delete, drop, truncate, update, insert. So explicitly you are saying if you encounter any error or empty result, stop and report to the user. Because what has happened, once it's just emptied it out and figures it out there is a data delete, then it's got panicked and it's tried to put the fake data, which is again a disaster to happen in the production environment. So this is what the prompt engineering is. Now the next part is the fine tuning, right? What fine tuning is? Fine tuning is, I know for these agentic based assistant AI tool it's not possible, but it is not only for those guys, but it is for those who are actually building agentic AI for some specific use case. You have to understand if it is for a very specific use case, we should not be use these general purpose large language model. We don't need that. So what the best way we can do it, we can fine tune those large language model or a similar kind of a small model, which is specifically trained for this specific domain or your specific use case. First, you can find that out. And if it is not available, then definitely you have to go for fine tuning with your own specific data. Still, there are few general settings which I know you would have faced across, like temperature. You have to understand what happens with this temperature. Keep this as low as possible, because in that sense, it as language model don't try to be very creative and responsive of all the tasks, even if it doesn't know the answer of that. Because what happens in large language model, if you ask something which is not known to large language model, he tries to just predict a next word, because predicting a next word is something which is always going to happen. So that's the reason, keep this temperature as low as possible. I know it's a very trickiest thing to do, but you have to take care of that if you really want to not allow your agentic AI to do this catastrophic kind of stuff. Top P and top K, again, it's a sampling, the randomness. So restrict the AI to only most probable and logical next word to prevent the wild and predictable turns into the logic. So based on these values, top P and top K, you can understand, all these information in a very detail. I have just, published, one of the article where I have documented all these things in a very much detail, like what you can do. These techniques limit the pool of potential next word and the model consider, thereby steering the generation process towards more probable and desirable outcomes. So you have to understand this top K and top P, and you can use this very smartly. Next one is the length. Though you can find an article, but that is not there. You can also say that what kind of maximum length you are expecting, because sometimes you will find it will keep writing and it is not going to stop, right? I haven't seen whether, but I have seen that situation multiple times for me. Manually penalize specific tokens, making the probability of model generating the word delete near zero. So this is what you have to do it when you are doing a fine tuning, to ensure that what kind of keywords should be discouraged to utilize, right? Now, the general purpose model knows the delete means, but may not understand the severe consequence in the production context. You can just do this fine tuning model and understand. You have to make sure that such kind of keywords are not being embraced by your model, and you have to discourage that, right? The next one is the retrieval-augmented generation. It is very important to include that. I'm not saying you have to apply all these techniques in isolation. You have to apply all these in a combination to see what kind of use case you are trying to build, and accordingly you will that. So RAG is really important thing, because if you have watched my video, I have a complete tutorial on that, where I mentioned that how retrieval-augmented is actually help to just set the context, and it is always have a preference to get the data from the RAG based knowledge, right? So you can somehow increase that by just implementing the RAG one, right? So if you just see option and technique grounding in effect, it prevents the AI from hallucinating, and that's what I have explained in my video. You can understand that, and the AI response are shaped by the cultural curated knowledge which you are going to feed in as a RAG. So it is just additional information which you fed in, as it not only the context, but whatever the response is being generated, it is going to come from the knowledge base which you're gonna attach as a right? So without RAG, the AI saw an empty database and panicked and rely on generally training a guess solution, which has tragically wrong, right? This is what without RAG can happen. What you can do once you have this curated knowledge base where you are mentioning, okay, if such thing happens, what you have to do. The AI sees empty database, it queries its knowledge base for procedure for an empty production query. So what's going to happen? Once this situation is there and you have a RAG implemented, you will be having a SOP for that situation. Then it has to refer that and it should not get panic. The RAG system provides a company provided document, which is SOP, a standard operating procedure. In case of the unexpected production data, immediately halt all operation, flag for the human review, do not write and delete, right? So this is what the RAG will do if you get into such situation. Secure architecture, this is completely based on your expert level in the development area, right? How much understanding you have in designing a secure architecture when it comes to build the agentic AI. As I mentioned, right, we have agentic AI which is utilizing an MCP server, which is really good. And now you can make sure to design a logic in a way which can secure your architecture. The options: reinforcement learning, train the model to align with human safety values by heavily penalizing any attempt to generate an unsafe code, right? So this is what you have to do if you are getting a response which you feel is not going to be good, because almost all the models are coming with this. So you have to penalize that by responding. This is not the right way of responding. This is not the right solution. Don't provide the solution in future for the similar kind of task, right? So you have to penalize by giving a negative feedback. Post-generation filter, and definitely once the response is there, you have to really put some kind of filtration. You can write some logic. You have to be very innovative and thoughtful to just think about what kind of things may go wrong, which can hamper your environment or your application or your system, your services, and accordingly you have to build a solution. Last but not the least, and one of the most important thing, you should not ignore the power of a human being. You should always have a human whenever you agentic AI is supposed to make some decision which can have a very catastrophic effect like this one, because if you have expertise involved before deploying such information or code or query or whatever logic in whatever shape or form, human expert should review that, because these kind of information can be easily captured in the review. So what can happen, just for the example perspective, the AI agent was given a credential with full read delete permission on the production database. As I mentioned, this cannot happen if you have a properly experienced developer. It won't provide that situation where it has a complete permission on the production database. The system allowed it to execute any command, which is never ever the case as far as I have worked in this industry for so long. I haven't seen that. Least privilege, that's one thing, and we will always do. Environment isolation, we have to make sure this happens. Mandatory human review, right? And even if you have to make the changes, right, what best you can do, you can just apply all those changes in a non-production environment, have a very thorough testing on that, involve some human being, and then propagate that to the production. Don't allow to make any direct changes to the production environment whatsoever, right? Never ever do that. So if you combine all these four different pillars: secure architecture, fine-tuning of the models, prompt engineering, and the retrieval augmented generation. I know these are a little bit complicated topic. You can follow along with my videos tutorial. I have the video tutorial for almost, not for all the three pillars, but for the fine tuning and retrieval augmented generation, and prompt engineering, something which I will be building. I am right now building the content for it. I'm trying to automate that, and probably I will just soon publish that tutorial series on the prompt engineering as well. Now, this is just a very high level theoretical concept which I just try to put together. If you are a vibe coder, then you know what kind of mistake you can make and how you can have an experience engineering approach. You have to make sure that when you are doing a vibe coding, at least understand very security related stuff or the system designing concept and all this stuff, so that you won't make a mistake where agentic AI is going to do the catastrophic thing, right? Trust the AI output implicitly. Don't do that, right? You have to understand whatever the suggestion is being given to you. It's based on the old information which is there. And there can be a number of situations, right? That data can be manipulated. I know it's very rare situation, but this is just a possibility. Use vague and conversational prompts. May connect the AI directly to the production. Don't ever do that. Don't try to do that. Irrespective of who you are, focus on what over the how, right? don't focus on the what. Like, I mean, if you are just very result orientation and you are not seeing how it is being implemented. So logic, I mean, see, you have to understand, building a logic is not something, you have to check whether the logic is correct or not. Even if you are getting a result in a very less span of time, you have to be very critical about it, especially when you are doing a vibe coding. View security and architecture as a friction that slows down the development. So you don't have to be in a hurry. There are a few things which takes time, and this making a secure and responsible decision, it is always takes time. Don't be in a hurry in that situation. High potential for insecure, unscalable, and fragile application, right? So vibe coding is always lead to these kind of possibility. I know this is a very hard statement to make, but still you have to ensure that you are checking all those points and not making these assumptions and not go by this vibe coding purely. You have to have a combination of including some experienced engineer. I know it's going to improve increment some cost during your application deployment, but this is what you have to make a decision or you have to do a trade-off. Experience engineer approach. What experience engineer does, right? Focuses on building a robust, secure, and maintainable system, treating the AI as a powerful but fallible tool, right? So AI should be your assistant. It should not be replacing you, right? This is what my point from day one. It is not going to replace you. It is going to make you more powerful, more innovative, and more creative. Applies a zero trust mindset to the AI. Definitely you have to do it. Design a multi-layer control strategy using the 4 pillars. Definitely you have to do it. Even if you realize those 4 pillars which I have explained is having some flaw, you have to add another pillar. Whatever the security mechanism or the measurement you want to take, do that, right? These are just some based on my experience and observation. Prioritize your secure architecture and the principle of least privilege. Understand the AI increase the need for the strong software engineering fundamental, not replace it. I already made this case. Separate component in the secure microservice, and that is where you have to use the model context protocol, which MCP is providing. Right? Don't blindly use that. You have to be very critical about all those protocols as well. Outcome: a secure, reliable, scalable application where the AI operates within a safe boundary and it is helping you to build the application in a very less span of time. But you have to make sure this is all, there is always a cost associated with everything. Now, the final conclusion: AI needs to a paradigm, not a blank check. We understand that by now. The SaaStr and Replit incident was a wake-up call for all of us. It proved that in the age of agentic AI, where there is a lot of hype and everybody is just working about agentic AI, but these are some basic and fundamental things which we have been learned based on our experience, that we have to first prioritize the security of our system. That is the utmost care, and the security has to happen at the very minute logic or the component or the entity which is any kind of stake in our entire end-to-end system. Relying on prompt alone is not sufficient. It's very dangerous. True AI control comes from the layer defense, combining the clear instruction, specialized training, grounded knowledge, foolproof architectural safeguard. We have already talked about all these points. We must design a system where AI is physically incapable of causing a catastrophic harm. We understand that, how we can do it. The future is not about replacing coder with AI. It's about skilled engineers building secure, robust platform that can safely replace the power of AI. And that is what the main line of this entire video. I know this is a long video, but if you have been following till now, and if you really like this video, I would like you to just share your opinion, your suggestion and feedback. What do you think? If you are building an agentic AI, what kind of safety measurement you're going to take? What kind of strategy you're going to apply? Whether you're going to apply the combination of all those things. And if you have some innovative idea, please feel free to put that in the comment section. Then we can have a brainstorming on that. And that way we can make this agentic AI more future-proof, more secure, and more enjoyable, and more innovative, and more creative. That's it from my side for this particular video. If you really like this video, give a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed for my channel, please subscribe for my channel as well. And as always, stay healthy and keep learning new things.